I was asked if I would create a tutorial about how I created this wood grain painted look. Luckily, I did film it, and I started out by purchasing a DYAD Pro prosthetic. Here I am kind of mapping out where it goes by putting some loose powder around the prosthetic and pat it towards my face. That just kind of gives me an outline. Then I put some Prosthetic glue on the inside of the prosthetic as well as my skin. Then using a brush, I'm just laying down the edges, just making sure that it has full contact. And then using some 99% alcohol, I am diluting the glue just to be able to roll the edges up off themselves and lay them down flat. Then I'm going over with some more Prosthetic just to make sure everything is glued down nicely. This prosthetic particularly is made with nose holes, so you can breathe out of it. Thanks, DYAD. And then I went in with some face primer. This is Double Duty Beauty by Tarte. Just applied it anywhere where I thought I would be applying paint. This just gives the skin a little bit of slip, which is important for this technique because you'll be pushing paint around quite a lot. For sensitivity reasons, I am not going to show my face completely covered in my base color.
Hey guys, editing Cici here. And I wanted to mention that if you are doing this makeup or technique on a client or yourself, if you have darker skin tones, you would want to work from lightest to darkest instead of darkest to lightest, which is what I'm doing here. So I'm adding in darker pigment to then remove and create striations and things like that. So instead you would put in your lighter color and remove to reveal the darker skin tone underneath.
So then I'm going in with some yellow highlight, and this is just prompted by the reference picture that I was looking at. I realized the main color was yellow, but I realized that my highlights didn't pop enough, so I went back in with a beigey tone to just make the highlights pop a little bit more. I had pre-painted the prosthetic with a reddish tone just because I thought that it would match my skin better, but once it was on the skin with the base color on, I realized that I had lost the warmthness to my own skin, so I had to put it back in. And I find that even in cool tone makeups, I do like adding some warmth to the cheeks and just kind of to the skin in general, because it kind of livens everything up and makes it look more dimensional. Then I'm taking a fan brush. This is a small fan brush that I use for mascara usually, and I cut the edges off of the fan brush there. I don't know if you can see that, but it gives me way more control over the brush because the ends of a fan brush usually tend to kind of flatten out. I'm using that same biscuity type beige color to create these lines, and you have to kind of play with the amount of water that you apply to your brush. Here I'm using just straight water to remove makeup, and I'm just testing out the striations there. I decided to go back in with the yellow and use that as a base, like a brighter base before I go in with like the lighter colors, but we'll come back to that. There's no rhyme or reason to how I'm applying this. I just added where I thought some cool knots or nodules would look good, and I tend to like it kind of asymmetrical. So then I took a doe foot, which is a sponge tip applicator for lip gloss, and I dipped it in water, and I'm just removing makeup here, just kind of dragging it across the skin, just removing and creating different size lines and squiggles, and then also using it for blending a little bit. I'm going back in with that beige color, creating, I can't remember exactly what my train of thought was here, but I just thought that it still didn't look like it had enough contrast and dimension, and especially because the edges on this prosthetic are a bit thick, and I didn't have like a blending agent here, like a Cabo patch. So I am just creating more light and dark to just kind of camouflage that a bit. So, right. So then I'm painting. Okay, fast forward. Yes, still painting. I then took a bit of that brighter color, and here you can see I'm starting to kind of blend everything out, because just, you don't want the lines to be super, I guess, stripy either. You kind of want some softness somewhere. And when I started to do the eyebrow, I started to realize that the eyes are so important in this makeup, because having some symmetry somewhere ties it together. So making sure that the eyes were pretty symmetrical was pretty important. And Yeah, so this is a very irregular makeup. Like obviously there's barely any symmetry to it. Just blending everything out here again. And I started to like the doe foot a lot better for painting. I don't know, just the brush didn't do it quite the same. The sponge just kind of tends to pick up the color and drag it along a little better. And then it has the flexibility of also being able to just like have some wetness to it and being dragged across the skin to pick up a lot of color. So then I went back to the fan brush. I tried the same technique and I liked the way that it was blending the colors together. So I just dipped it in water. I'm just using water here to just kind of create some striations and also blend things a little bit. I want to make sure that I'm not muddying things together, because if you put too much water on the fan brush, then you can really create a mess. It's like, I want to say there's only like 25% moisture on this brush right now, if you can imagine that. And yeah, and just kind of like dragging it along, creating this kind of like, I thought I looked like bacon, honestly. At first I was like, this looks a lot like bacon and less like wood, but it does tie together, I promise. So then I cleaned off my brush and I applied some yellow to the brush. I'm creating the same kind of effect, same striation pattern. It's really just I'm playing here. I don't actually know what I'm doing or why I'm doing it yet. I just realized that I lost a lot of that initial kind of yellowy color underneath that I liked, and that is definitely part of my reference picture. So I'm just trying to apply it back in and also create some more irregularity. Okay, so then I took a flat brush and I started to do the same thing just with water, removing pigment, adding striations. I mean, this is the name of the game with this makeup, is just seeing how much texture you can fit onto one face. I did start to notice though that even though I really liked the texture that I was adding, I was losing contrast. So I will eventually be adding contrast back in. You'll see that there's more contrast on the painted nose than there is on my face right now. But this is really just me experimenting with how to use my tools to get the effect that I want. So, and here's me filming some stuff for TikTok. I'm just showing you that I am painting out the tip of the nose with that like brightest color. And then I'm taking that fan brush again, dipping it in the brown paint. And this is where I start to get really excited about the way that this makeup is looking, because I realized that once I started putting in my darkest colors, I just realized it's going to look freaking cool. I don't know. It's a moment where you're like kind of proud of yourself for figuring it out. I was like, oh yeah, this is going to look neat. So please notice all the little dots and kind of like wood freckles in this reference picture. This is my texture reference picture. So I used one reference for color and one reference for texture. I just loved the texture of this wood. I just thought it was so cool, and I thought it was perfect because there's enough, I guess, like visual noise to work very well as a makeup. This I thought was going to be a very hard makeup to do. I already knew that, and just that kind of like the breaking up of texture I thought would be good for hiding things. So like hiding, for instance, rough edges, or when things look too stripy. So like I thought some of the striations here looked pretty stripy, and so obviously I went back in and I kind of just like did my little dot 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 trick. And yeah, here it is. Trying to show you guys close up, the way that it kind of worked. And also it's a mixture of like putting in brown dots and then also removing with the same technique. So like just here I'm removing with water, or like a damp brush, and kind of creating that chop, chop, chop into the wood grain. I think that that's actually a very key element of what made it look real. And visual noise can really help just break up monotony, or kind of two things that are too stripy or look too perfect, too regular, I guess. So here I'm beginning to create my knot, my like little wood knot. And I did that by first outlining that the darkest area there, the brown, just doing kind of kind of a watered down brown. And then I took water and just really cleaned up and created kind of like a stain on, like a stain, but it's not a stain. It's just my natural skin color poking through on the inside of it. Does that make sense? Like I'm putting in my brown outline, and then with my water, I am removing the lightest part, which is my skin color, and revealing underneath just kind of like a stain. I don't know how to explain it any better, but you can see what I mean. So yeah, I am just cleaning up. I didn't really love the way that this sort of heart slash, I don't know, kind of looked like a cactus to me shape was going. I ended up changing it in the final makeup. But again, this was just one big experiment, so I'm not going to worry about it too much, and I'm going to fast forward to where it gets more interesting. Okay, so here I'm doing the tip of the nose. This might not be the most interesting to everyone, but it is important because I wanted to create wood rings. Like when you cut into a tree, you can see how old it is by the rings on it. So I created the brown outline, put in my lighter shade on the inside, and then did another ring of brown, and then removed using water. So this is very important because this is how you begin to create your ring shape. Using water, I started to remove in kind of an irregular shape. Now here's an example of that on my cheek where I had my initial shape. I removed that line that was in the middle, if you remember before, and then I did a wash of brown all over the inside. Then using water, I started to remove the inside, just leaving a very light ring. Now what this does is it allows for the gradation from the darkest part of your outline to create kind of just like a gradient down into a wash and then into nothing. Okay, so I'm really cleaning it up, just trying to make it as clean as possible. And I decided to put in some other kind of like knots as well. Like the more you play with it, the more you play with it. I don't know, like the better it looks, and more texture is like more is more with this makeup, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Here's me just adding in a few lines. Here, oh, this is a cool shot because you get to see how watered down my wash is in some areas. The chest area was actually one of my favorite areas to do because it almost looked like a crystal to me, like a geode or the inside of a rock, if you know what I mean. This technique could be used to create all kinds of natural textures like that. I mean, in this case, I'm trying to emulate wood, but you could also do marble, you could do geodes. Just a cool technique to know. So by the way, one of the things that I really like about the water activated paint that I use is called Wolfe face paint, is the finish on it. And when I applied my beauty makeup and went in to apply my powder blush, I realized that that really takes away from the beautiful finish of the paint. I wanted that polished wood look, and it just kind of dulled it down and made it look really lifeless. So I took my RMS quad. This is like a lip and cheek quad, and it has 2 blushes and 2 highlighters. I'll show you guys in a minute. And what it does is it just kind of adds some of that shine back in without moving the paint around. Obviously, I didn't wear this makeup out or anything, or I wasn't on set. I don't know how it would wear for hours and hours and hours, but it didn't move. And this took me about 2 hours to paint. So, I really enjoyed the way that this looked in the very end. I have to say, like, Wolfe paints are some of my favorite paints. I had some comments about, what did you use? Like, I can't get my water activated paints to look the same. It might be because it's not based in the same product. Paraffin or wax water activated paints have a different texture. I hope you guys enjoyed this makeup and this tutorial. I really enjoyed creating it, and I hope you, got some use out of it. Please hit like, subscribe, all the things, and show me some love in the comments because it really cheers me up and makes me motivated to create more videos for you. Okay, thanks, you guys. Bye.